Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're rediving into the epic story of one of history's most remarkable military leaders and spiritual successors, Joshua. His journey is a masterclass in faith, strategy, and stepping up when the world needs a hero. So, who was Joshua? We first meet him not as a commander, but as a loyal assistant to the legendary Moses. His original name was Hoshe, meaning salvation, but Moses renamed him Joshua, which means the Lord is salvation. This name change wasn't just a casual nickname. It was a prophecy, a sign of the massive role he was destined to play in the destiny of his people, the Israelites. Imagine the pressure. For 40 years, the Israelites wandered the desert after their dramatic escape from Egypt. Moses, their guide and leader, was a giant figure. But as they stood on the brink of the Promised Land, a new leader had to emerge. That leader was Joshua. God himself appointed him, telling him, "As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you." Talk about a vote of confidence. Joshua's first big test wasn't a battle, but a mission of reconnaissance. He was one of the 12 spies sent by Moses to scout out the land of Canaan, the land promised to them. When they returned, 10 of the spies were terrified. They spoke of giants and fortified cities, spreading fear and doubt among the people. They said, "We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." But Joshua, along with his companion Caleb, saw things differently. They saw the same challenges, but they also saw God's promise. They tore their clothes in frustration and pleaded with the people. "The land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into that land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us." Their faith was unshakable. But sadly, the people's fear won out. This act of doubt led to another 40 years of wandering, a tough lesson in the cost of fear. Fast forward for decades. Moses has passed away, and the mantle of leadership falls squarely on Joshua's shoulders. An entire generation has passed. Now, it's time to finally cross the Jordan River and enter the Promised Land. This wasn't just a simple river crossing. The Jordan was at flood stage, a raging torrent. How could an entire nation, with women, children, and livestock, possibly get across? Joshua's leadership shines here. He doesn't rely on conventional engineering. He relies on faith. He instructs the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred symbol of God's presence, to step into the water. The moment their feet touched the river's edge, the waters upstream miraculously piled up in a heap, and the downstream flow was cut off. The entire nation of Israel walked across on dry ground. Can you imagine the scene? It was a powerful statement to everyone, including their enemies, that God was with Joshua, just as he had been with Moses. Once across the Jordan, their first major obstacle was the legendary city of Jericho. This wasn't just any city. It was ancient, powerful, and protected by massive, impenetrable walls. A direct assault would have been suicidal. So, what was Joshua's battle plan? It was, to put it mildly, unconventional. Following divine instructions, Joshua commanded the Israelite army to march around the city once a day for 6 days. They were to do so in complete silence, with only the sound of 7 priests blowing ram's horns, or shofar. The Ark of the Covenant was carried with them in the procession. Imagine the psychological effect on the people of Jericho. For 6 days, they watched this silent, eerie parade circle their city. It must have been incredibly unnerving. Then came the 7th day. On this day, they were to march around the city 7 times. After the 7th lap, at Joshua's command, the priests would sound a long blast on their horns, and the entire army was to shout with all their might. And what happened next is one of the most famous events in the Bible. The walls of Jericho came crashing down. The Israelites then charged in and took the city. This victory wasn't won by military might, but by obedience and faith. It set the tone for the entire campaign to come. However, the journey wasn't all smooth sailing. Right after this incredible victory came a humbling defeat. Joshua sent a small force to take the seemingly insignificant town of Ai. He was overconfident, thinking it would be an easy win, but his men were routed and chased away. 36 Israelite soldiers were killed, Joshua was devastated. He fell on his face before God, asking why this happened. The answer was a hard lesson in leadership and accountability. There was sin in the camp. Someone had disobeyed a direct order from the Jericho campaign, where they were instructed not to take any plunder for themselves. A man named Achan had secretly taken a beautiful robe, some silver, and a bar of gold. This single act of disobedience by one person brought defeat upon the entire nation. It shows a key principle in Joshua's story. The success of the community depended on the integrity of each individual. Once the sin was dealt with, Joshua approached Ai again. This time, he used a brilliant military strategy. He set up an ambush, luring the men of Ai out of their city and then attacking from the rear. This time, they were victorious. The defeated Ai taught Joshua a valuable lesson. Never underestimate an opponent, and always ensure your own house is in order. As news of Israel's victories spread, the local Canaanite kings started to get nervous. A coalition of 5 Amorite kings decided to join forces and attack the city of Gibeon, which had recently made a peace treaty with Israel. The Gibeonites sent a desperate plea to Joshua for help. Joshua responded immediately, marching his army all night to surprise the enemy coalition. The battle that followed was fierce. As the Amorite armies began to flee, a massive hailstorm rained down on them, causing more casualties than the Israelite swords. But the day was ending, and Joshua knew that if the enemy escaped under the cover of darkness, they would regroup. It was in this moment that Joshua uttered one of the most audacious commands ever recorded. He looked up to the sky and prayed, "Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and you, moon, over the valley of Ish." And, incredibly, the Bible says the sun stood still in the middle of the sky and delayed going down for about a full day, until the nation had avenged itself on its enemies. This miracle allowed the Israelites to completely destroy the Amorite armies. There has never been a day like it before or since, a day when the Lord listened to a human being. This victory was a turning point. After this, Joshua led a series of blitzkrieg campaigns, sweeping through the southern and then the northern parts of Canaan. He defeated a total of 31 kings, conquering city after city. His military tactics were varied and effective. He used ambushes, forced marches, and direct assaults, adapting his strategy to each unique situation. He was not just a man of faith. He was a brilliant military commander. After years of conquest, the land was finally subdued. Joshua's next major task was perhaps just as challenging as the fighting, dividing the land among the 12 tribes of Israel. This was a massive administrative and logistical undertaking. It required fairness, wisdom, and the ability to manage the expectations of hundreds of thousands of people. He carefully allocated territories, established cities of refuge for those who had accidentally caused someone's death, and set aside cities for the Levites, the priestly tribe who didn't receive a land inheritance of their own. His leadership wasn't just about winning wars. It was about building a nation. He established the foundations for Israel's society in their new home, ensuring that the promises made to their ancestors were fulfilled. As Joshua grew old, he gathered all the tribes of Israel together for one final address. This wasn't a speech about military glories or past victories. It was a heartfelt plea for the future. He reminded them of their entire history, from their ancestor Abraham to their miraculous journey into the Promised Land. He laid out all the ways God had been faithful to them, and then he gave them a choice, a famous, powerful choice. He said, "Now fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. Throw away the gods your ancestors worshipped beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord." With these words, Joshua cemented his legacy. He wasn't a king who demanded loyalty. He was a leader who inspired it. The people responded with a unified voice, promising to remain faithful to God. Joshua died at the age of 110 and was buried in the land he had helped to conquer. His story is more than just a series of battles. It's a powerful narrative about leadership, courage, and the importance of unwavering faith in the face of impossible odds. He was the man who had to fill Moses' shoes, who led his people across a raging river, brought down the walls of an invincible city, and even commanded the sun to stand still. He was a bridge between the wandering in the desert and the establishment of a nation. Now, let's talk about leadership and unity. Imagine trying to get hundreds of thousands of people to march in silence for 6 days straight. It requires incredible discipline and trust in their leader. Joshua had to communicate the vision and the plan with such clarity and conviction that everyone bought in. He established a culture of unity. At the Battle of Ai, after an initial, surprising defeat, we see this unity tested. It was discovered that one person, Achan, had disobeyed and taken forbidden loot from Jericho. This single act of disobedience broke the unity of the entire nation and led to failure. Joshua dealt with the issue decisively. He understood that the strength of the group depended on the integrity of each individual. The third secret, then, is the power of unity and integrity. Whether in a family, a company, or a community, a shared vision and a commitment to doing the right thing are non-negotiable for success. One person cutting corners can jeopardize the entire mission. Another key strategy Joshua employed was decisiveness and momentum. After the victory at Jericho, he didn't just sit around and celebrate for months. He kept moving. He understood the importance of momentum in any campaign. After dealing with the failure at Ai, he immediately planned a new, more sophisticated attack. This time, he used an Abusha classic military tactic. He lured the army of Ai out of their city and then had a hidden force attack it from the rear. This shows his adaptability. He learned from his failure and changed his approach. The fourth principle is this: be decisive, maintain momentum, and be willing to adapt your strategy. When you achieve a victory, build on it. When you face a setback, learn from it quickly, adjust your plan, and get back in the fight. Don't let failure paralyze you or success make you complacent. Perhaps one of the most profound aspects of Joshua's leadership was his constant remembrance of what God had done. Before crossing the Jordan, he had the priests carry the Ark of the Covenant into the raging river, and the waters miraculously parted. After they crossed, he commanded them to take 12 stones from the middle of the riverbed and build a memorial. Why? So that in the future, when their children asked what these stones meant, they could tell them the story. It was a physical reminder of a spiritual reality. He was institutionalizing memory. This is our fifth secret. Build memorials. In your own life, when you overcome a challenge or experience a breakthrough, find a way to remember it. Write it down, create a tradition, tell the story. These memorials become sources of strength and faith for the future battles you will inevitably face. They remind you that if you've overcome before, you can overcome again. Finally, Joshua's entire campaign was guided by a divine promise. He wasn't just fighting for land. He was fighting to claim an inheritance that was promised generations before. This gave his mission a deep sense of purpose that went beyond mere conquest. He knew he was part of a much bigger story. The final principle is to know your purpose. Why are you fighting the battle you're in? What is the promise you are holding on to? When your struggle is connected to a greater purpose, it gives you a resilience that is almost unbreakable. It's the difference between just surviving and fighting for a destiny. So, to recap Joshua's battle secrets. First, radical obedience to a higher calling. Second, combining faith with diligent preparation. Third, fostering unity and integrity within your team. Fourth, being decisive, adaptable, and maintaining momentum. Fifth, building memorials to remember past victories. And sixth, anchoring everything you do in a deep sense of purpose. Thank you so much for watching. If this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that helps you conquer your challenges. Let me know in the comments which one of Joshua's secrets you're going to apply this week. Stay strong, keep fighting, and I'll see you in the next video.